welcome back to the channel. As the title of this video suggests, this video is going to be all about some channeled information that I've received from Lucy. Emily is here with us. She says hello. So yeah, I'm going to try to bring through this information as clearly as I can. I took a bunch of notes, so this video may run a little long. It's also near the end going to include a ritual that you can do if you are open to connecting with Lucy, and I'm going to get into more of that in detail as we move along. So first and foremost, let me put a disclaimer out there and say this information isn't going to be what you would normally find in a typical grimoire that you would read, you know, that lists attributes like, oh, this spirit is connected to this direction and this type of incense, or you know what, this is different. So be open to that. Also, I want to take a moment to say hello to my friend Jess, who I spoke with earlier today. It was really nice reconnecting. So yeah, let me jump into the subject matter. I'm going to have to flip through some of these notes because, like I said, a lot of info came through. I'm going to begin with what I consider some core tenets. You might view these as, you know, some intrinsic values that Lucy has told me that she, you know, places in high regard. Be mindful of these core tenets because this will give you some idea as to whether or not you want to work with this being. There again, I will always say we all walk our own path. You may reach out and form a connection with Lucy, and she may come through to you in a totally different way, and if that's the case, so be it. Walk your path if it serves you. I mean, you know, I can only share what has come through to me. So yeah, on the core tenets here, we have be willing to help ourselves. I want to start with this and say I think this is really important, especially where magic is concerned. A lot of people, it's been my experience that a lot of people turn to magic with this idea that it's going to easily fix all of their problems or issues or whatever. And I think there are instances where it can be that simple. Having said that, I also believe a lot of it comes down to the work that you as an individual are willing to put forth and put forward toward whatever goal it is that you have. I've said this in previous videos. If you're willing to show these spiritual beings that you're connecting with that you're serious about your desires and that you want change, there again you can receive a lot of blessings and benefit and assistance. But therein, that's been my experience with Lucy so far. She's all about us doing our part to help ourselves. That's not to say that she won't assist, because she will. I can share a small experience with you. I'll try to keep this brief. Last night during meditation, I wasn't feeling well. I was having some issues and just like not feeling that good, and Lucy was guiding me through this meditation, and so she knew, you know, what was going on in my body and in my mind, like in my heart and my emotions and stuff during this guided meditation. And I'm channeling all this message from her like while I'm doing the meditation. She moved energy through my body in a way that shifted my discomfort and virtually, quote unquote, healed me during this experience, and it was amazing and just powerful. But there again, she also knows that I have been trying to do the work that she has set forth and encouraged me to do, so I think that's a part of it. Moving on, also another part of this that she has channeled to me, she places a lot of importance on service to others, which is a powerful synchronicity for me because that's a big part of my own spiritual path. Now, you might not think from what you've heard in the media and other religious texts and views on Lucy that she would have that sort of concern or resonance. What has come through to me is that Lucy is very much a being and an energy that is there with people in need. Like, she's very much in the grit and in the dirt, in the streets, you could say. She is concerned about all of us, and she wants to help us move into a space where we can help ourselves and then find love and light, like in our connection to others in that resonance. That's the bulk of these tenets that I wrote down here. Be kind and loving to each other. Focus on helping others. And especially also important here, seeking spiritual wisdom and self-mastery. There again, I feel like those are two components of any kind of magical tradition, no matter how you walk your path. Those are some founding principles, those two particularly, that are going to aid you in success, whatever you're doing. Like, those things are important. So yeah, that's the bulk of those tenets. Also, now I'm getting a message from her saying there are other things, but this is the list for now, so these other things I will share in future videos. So now I'm going to have to move back through my notes here because, like I said, there's a lot of this. Yeah, so this next part of sharing this is going to be about when this information was being channeled earlier today, and I was taking notes for this video. Basically, Lucy gave me a sort of, how to word this, almost like a guided meditation in a way of taking me through ages and through time, sort of, and sharing her own story. And there again, as I said earlier, you may channel information from Lucy and it may be alternative to this, and if that's the case, so be it. Use what works for you and let that be that. But I will share the story that came through to me. Basically, Lucy said that she was here when the world was young. I mean, before obviously there were people or a lot of mammals, when things were just forming. You're talking, primeval time or primordial time, I think is the proper term. I'm not doing it right, but either way, you get my drift. Like, when the oceans were there and maybe there wasn't very much land. The point, I think, for her of sharing that with me is to let me know that she has been around for a long time. As things shifted and changed, especially as we as human beings started to develop into the species that we are now, she took an interest in us. I think particularly because of our innate magical abilities. Also, it came through here in this message that she played, to some degree, a pivotal role in the shaping of our species, especially where certain things were concerned. One example of that came through in this writing is when we sort of forged our connection with fire, learning how to use fire, how to make it, but also like how to transport it. That shifted us as a species in a lot of different ways, and Lucy played a role there. Now, I didn't necessarily get that she manifested then and physically taught people. I feel like that information she gave to them on an intuitive level, whether they understood what that was or not. That was a powerful part of the story that came through. Also, we move forward now from that time to a time in our history, and I didn't get specific dates on any of this, so that will be what it is. What came through here in the message and in the story was that there was a time in our past where not just Lucy, but other spiritual beings, gods and goddesses, walked among us. I mean, our interactions with them was a lot more powerful because there were actual physical manifestations. From what I understand and how the story unfolded, basically it was really good for a period of time, but as our own intuitive and magical abilities sort of rose during that exchange and experience with them, a lot of human beings moved into this space where the ego took over rather than the spiritual wisdom that we needed. So in a way, we sort of turned away from these gods and these spirits and these energies that had helped us, and I mean, that caused a lot of chaos, man. Go back to that old adage of power corrupts, and I do believe that to a degree. Like, if you don't temper the abilities and the strengths that you have with humility and gratitude, you're going into a dark area. I feel like that's what happened to us. And so ultimately these spiritual beings and these gods, for the most part, decided they were going to take a step back and sort of let us do what we were going to do, and because they saw that experiment of working with us, at least at that time, had failed, unfortunately. And that's on us. I don't feel like at all that was on them. So that was a part of the story. Yeah, and so I mentioned that here. To some degree, what came through in this story was that these beings sort of got together, and there was a kind of agreement, like a policy that was made of non-interference. Like harken back, if you're familiar with Star Trek, the Prime Directive. You're not going to go in and mess with a less evolved society, because you're going to change who they are and how they live if you do that. And I feel like, to some degree, that's what happened with the gods and these spirits and these beings. So let's see. Okay, so yeah, that was basically that part of that. Also, that leads us to where we are now, in the sense, like, this time. I feel like, to some degree, especially us who live in the U.S., like, in the state of our country, the way that we live for the most part. Obviously, I'm not speaking for everyone, because there are people even now who live to some degree off the grid, and they're focusing more on getting back to nature and making connections. But I think a lot of us are inherently disconnected from each other, from our world, from our lives. Definitely a lot of us are disconnected from spiritual beings and our own intuition. And yet we live in this society where we have some modern conveniences that are really great and amazing, like running water and toilet paper and like all these things that are really good. Having said that, there's also a lot of it that's really screwed up. You're eating food and you don't know where it comes from. There's just a lot of disconnect. And the message that came through with some of this channeled information is that there are beings that have now separated from that agreement that I talked about a while ago. I'm not saying that they're running around and doing stuff, because I don't know that for a truth, but I do know from what Lucy has told me, her in particular, like, she has moved into a space now where she's no longer abiding by that agreement. She wants to play a more important role in people's lives. She wants to help us to reach a space where we have balance and goodness and happiness, and we live differently, but in a way that brings us like happiness. Sorry, I've got to have some tea. In a way that brings us love and light and happiness and harmony. I mean, in a way that we're fully engaged and connected to our lives and connected to her and these other spiritual beings. So the point of all of that there is that there are some shifts taking place. Let's see. Now, there are some things also that came through in the channel that I'm supposed to share. So we're going to get really real here for a minute. One of the things that I can share with you is that, for me, there is a very big difference between my connection to Spirit, which for me is the goddess, and my connection to Lucy. The energy and the information that I have channeled from the goddess is very loving, it's very beautiful, but it's also all about me practicing my free will. To the degree the goddess feels more separate, even though I know, like, on a spiritual and on an intuitive level, I know she's not separate. It's almost like she is in that space of non-interference, where she's just sort of like, you do you. There's no judgment, there's no, it's all on you. I'm here to support you and help you when you ask for that help, but I'm going to stay over here. My connection with Lucy is different. I feel like Lucy has been with me for a very long time. I've written about her in some of the fiction because that work was channeled. Yeah, she has been with me, but connecting to her, I knew that exchange would be different. So there was some information that she gave me before I did my own dedication rite, and it came through very intensely and very powerfully. That's why I'm sharing that with you right now. There are things to consider and be mindful when working with Lucy. One thing in particular, she does desire and expects from us a level of humility and gratitude. It's just like, you have to understand that these spiritual beings that we work with are immensely powerful. Some of them, like Lucy, have existed, since the beginning of all of this. And so it would be foolish and naive of us to approach these beings without being thoughtful. But she wanted me to mention that in the channeled message, to say, if you are an occultist who thinks that you can step into, a ritual and summon her and be disrespectful or rude or whatever, that's probably not going to work out very well for you if you're trying to connect to Lucy. Now, that may work with some other beings. I can't speak for your own path and your own experience, but I would say that's not very wise. So be mindful of that if you choose to work with her. Harken back as well what I mentioned in those tenets. She also said it's very important to put that out there, that if you're going to connect and work with her, be willing to do the work and follow her guidance. Like, she working with her is a much more serious investment than, as I said earlier, for me in connecting to the goddess. Like, if the goddess brings a message through to me and the goddess says, oh, it would be a good thing for you to do, A, B, and C. Well, I mean, that's useful to me, and I'm grateful for that. And 9 times out of 10, because I take my spiritual path seriously, I'm going to go and do those things. But if I don't do those things, there's no blowback. Like I said, the goddess, there's no judgment coming from her. She's still going to reach out, and she's still going to be there and lend to me that unconditional love and light. My connection to Lucy is different, though, in the sense that on an intuitive level, I know if Lucy comes to me and says, here's some advice, here's something that you need to do for your highest, greatest good, and it's going to help you to reach some of these goals that you said you want to reach. If I don't hearken to that advice, I feel like that would be dangerous. I feel like that would be disrespectful toward Lucy, toward our bond, and I would say, at the very least, she is likely to be distant, at least for a period of time, until I either do those things that she suggested, or I show her in some way, that I'm willing, and that, there was a screw up or something went on that interfered with me being able to do those things. But the importance here is that the connection with Lucy cannot be something that you just approach in a haphazard way. Like, if you're going to dedicate, especially if you're going to dedicate and work with her, be mindful of that decision. It's not something to do on a whim. I would also suggest to you, if you're considering dedicating yourself to working with Lucy, spend as much time as you need doing research. Now, you can reach out to Lucy and ask for connection with her and wanting to learn more about her without doing a dedication. I mentioned the seriousness of this dedication because I was also told to include some information about a dedication rite that people can do if they want to connect to her. So that's why I'm going over these points. Let me make sure that I didn't miss anything. I think really that's all on that. There again, like, I'm going to get into the actual ritual itself here in a minute. But yeah, I cannot stress that enough. Be mindful if you decide that you want to dedicate your time and your energy to connecting with Lucy. The way it came through to me when I did my dedication was that I was told I was brought into her family as her child, and not obviously her only, because there are many other people who have that level of connection with her. But I'm saying it's a responsibility. Don't go into that lightly, and don't think that it's something that you can decide on Monday to do, and then on Friday be like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. It doesn't work that way. So yeah, just be mindful. If you want to connect to her, if you feel drawn to her, be thoughtful about your approach. So yeah, the rest of this video is going to be me describing this dedication ritual. If you are interested or not interested in doing a dedication ritual with her, you can sort of skip the rest of it. I will say to you though, however, you can use the format that I'm about to describe to connect to other beings as well, and to make a similar type of dedication. So you might find the information useful. There again, use what works for you and let the rest of it go. So starting off, as I said the other day in my other ritual about, working with any kind of ritual that you may plan to do, it can be simplistic. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. And another important thing to mention here is that your ritual doesn't have to be perfect. If you feel like you need the help, take a notebook into your circle with you, or however you do that, so that you can look at your notes and make sure that you cover all the steps that you've laid out that you want to do. That's perfectly fine. The spirits aren't hanging out there making jokes that you're not some ninth degree, member of the Golden Dawn or whatever. Like, they don't expect you to be an expert at this work, especially if it's a new practice. So they're much more concerned with whether or not you are sincere in what you're doing. If your heart is in the work, you'll be surprised at the powerful outcomes that will come through in your ritual, no matter what it looks like. So be mindful of that. So yeah, having said that, we'll just get right into this. Like I said, it's not complicated. Basically, really the only things that you need like 5 candles. One candle that will represent each of the 4 elements, and one candle obviously for Lucy. So you just set up your space. That in and of itself is really easy to do. Most people these days have some sort of cell phone or smartphone. If you don't have that, use a compass. But these phones have apps, and there's a free app you can get for your phone that acts as a compass, and you can get, more specific, like where the directions are. If you don't want to do that, you can just watch and be attentive to where the sun rises and the sun sets. But yeah, just have an idea of your compass directions. Also, I was told to mention this as well. This is something that I didn't know when I did my first connection ritual with Lucy. Lucy is associated with the East. I do tend to think that she is connected to all the directions, but she came through to me in ritual in the East. So as you're setting up these candles in the different cardinal points, that additional candle that will be there for Lucy, put that in the East. That's my suggestion. So let's see, where are we? Sorry, I've got a lot of notes here. It's a lot on this page. Okay, yeah, so when you're beginning, basically go through. You can light the candles to the elements if you want. I would say light Lucy's candle first. So just close your eyes, go into prayer, call out to Lucy, and put that intention there that you are lighting that candle in her name. So you light your candle. Then the message that came through to me is to trace her sigil in the air over the candle. There are several different symbols that, for various reasons have connections to Lucy. The one personally that I was drawn to is this tattoo here and this symbol here on this necklace. So you can definitely use that, and that's what came through to me in the channeled writing. If you feel, though, compelled to use a different symbol, but on an intuitive level, you feel like, yeah, this works with Lucy as well, then use that. Use what works for you. So trace that sigil above the candle that you got there, and then move into what's called an N. N's are basically just a set of words that you can use as a chant to connect to some of these beings. There's a decent video about N's that I will try to link to you. The thing is, when you do an N, it's more about sort of vibrating and connecting to the energy of that resonance of sound, rather than just saying like, oh, here are these magical words. You see, there's a difference. Like, when you try to vibrate / sing this N, it adds magical energy to it, and what it does is it helps you to connect on a vibrational level to the beings that you want to work with, depending on the N that you're using. There is an N that you can use for Lucy, and I will link to that in the description of this video as well, so you can find it. So yeah, you want to say this N after you trace that symbol, and I was told to say this N 10 times. Now, you may or may not find the number 10 in resonance to Lucy, in other grimoires or from other sources. When I first started connecting and channeling information from Lucy, it came through to me that she has value in that number. So there again, take it with a grain of salt and find what works for you. So once you have said her in 10 times, that's when you move into that step where you go around your space, you light those other candles. For me, when I'm connecting to the elements, I call out to the guardians of the watchtowers. That's just how I learned it. But I mean, you can simply call out to the element, of air, of earth, of fire, and water, however you choose to do that. There again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Find what works for you. Once you have called out to those watchtowers, my advice to you is to ask them to act as guardians of your space. What you want to do is have the elemental energy there. You want to be balanced. You want to be in a positive emotional and spiritual state. And you want to solely connect with Lucy in the example of this ritual, or whatever being, it is that you choose to work with. But if you put that intent out there and ask those guardians, to watch over that space, there again, if you come from a place of humility and asking, they will be there to help you. So yeah, go through, and work with the elements, call them there. Then you want to go into prayer, and this is where you have that sacred connection with Lucy. Basically, if you're doing a dedication, if you've decided that you want to connect with Lucy, then you want to go into prayer, be very humble, and put that intent and that request out there. You're going to ask something like, Lucy, I ask that you please deepen this connection with you and I. I ask for this bond to be created. I ask to be brought into your family, as your child. However you want to word that, I would say write that out as far as whatever feels comfortable to you. When you are finished with that prayer, and that prayer needs to be said aloud, there is a power in speaking prayer aloud. A lot of times in my own practice, my prayers I will do in my head. For me, that came through a lot because I started doing spiritual work in groups where not everyone was aligned to the same beings, and so it just seemed natural to me to do a prayer in my head. That way I didn't have to get into a 10-minute discourse of, when I say spirit, this is what I mean, etc., etc. It was just more simple. But there is something to be found and to be exchanged and experienced when you say a prayer aloud. There again, you're using your voice, the sound of your voice, the energy and the magic that's inherently in that practice. So yes, say this prayer aloud with your eyes closed. Make sure that it comes from the heart if therein you're doing a dedication ritual. When you are done with your prayer, simply sit there and be. This is sort of a semi-meditative state that you want to enter into. You can open your eyes and focus on the flame of her candle if you want. If you want to keep your eyes closed, I have found that sometimes that can be more helpful. What you want to be aware of is the shifts of energy in your space. Also be aware of any images that may come to you or channeled messages, depending on how strong of a foundation you have with your own intuition. Here's the thing to be mindful of though. Even if you don't experience anything at all, particularly if you're new on your path and you haven't worked with your intuition, when you do rituals like this, even if you personally can't perceive what is going on, these spirits hear us, and I'm getting cold chills now. They are there. They are always around us. And if you move from the heart center, if you are genuine in your request and reaching out to Lucy, she will be there. That connection will be made whether you know it or not. So take that and accept it for the truth that it is. I say that to you because when I got started on my path and I started doing rituals, I did several rituals with this expectation that, there was going to be a physical manifestation, or I was going to hear something or see something, and none of those things happened. And instead of being enlightened and understanding that those spirits were there, that I just couldn't perceive them, for me it became a blockage and a frustration because I kept thinking, I did something wrong. So use, my folly, quote unquote, as something useful for you and your own path. Be mindful that if you put that intent out there, the spirits will show up whether you realize it or not. Let's see. Let me make sure that I didn't miss anything here. Yeah, there again, basically just spend as much time as you feel is necessary there in that space. As I said, Being mindful of trying to sense the energy in the air, also any images or thoughts or feelings that come to you. Just be open to the whole experience. When you feel like you have been there long enough and you feel like that bond has been created, you can open your eyes and begin to close down your ritual. My suggestion there again, go from your cardinal points, blow out the candles, but before you do, reach out in a space of humility and thanks and gratitude to these elemental guardians. Thank them for their presence, thank them for guarding your space, thank them for their help and assistance. I usually end by saying something like, thank you for being here. I bid you, I honor you, and I bid you farewell. And that's just a nice way of letting these spirits know that you're grateful that they have been there, to help you and to interact with you. So that's my take there again. However you choose to approach your own ritual, go that route. But that's my suggestion. So once you have gone from your cardinal points, all that is left is that single candle with Lucy. I would suggest take another minute or two, stare into the flame, be open to what images may come through to you. When you feel ready, do the same, make the same approach with Lucy. Thank her for the bond and the connection that was made. Ask that she continues to strengthen that bond and to help you strengthen your intuition so that you can receive her guidance and her words. Gotta have some tea here. But yeah, simply extend that gratitude to her, and when you feel that you are ready, blow the candle out. Another thing I'll mention, this came up in another video a while back, you may find that when you go to blow out your candle, it won't blow out. If you try to blow it out and it doesn't blow out, stop. There is a resonance and a meaning for that. It is a way of Lucy letting you know that you need to stay in that space longer. It could be that there's, an image or an energy or a message that she's trying to bring through to you, and it's going to take a little longer for you to receive it. So be mindful of little things like that. They can be powerful synchronicities in and of themselves. But there again, once you get to that place where you can shut things down, you can blow out her candle, excuse me, and then move on, with your practice and your day. I want to harken back to what we were talking about earlier in the sense of these beings being here now and being ready to work with us on a deeper level, because there are some shifts in our culture and our society that need to be made. Lucy, that's the information that I channeled through from her, is that she is here and that she has extended this invitation to anyone who wants to work with her, to anyone who's curious about learning more about her. She is, in a sense, opening the doors. But be mindful of the things that we went through in this video earlier. Understand that this is not a commitment to take lightly, or a decision to be made lightly. Understand that as a spiritual being, she expects you to put forth as much work as you can, and to know that it's not free. You're not just going to do a ritual and ask her for wealth or prosperity or whatever it is. If it's some extravagant goal, she's not just going to hand it to you, because if she did, then she would only enable you to stay in that space where you're not doing the things that you need to do for you. So be mindful of all of that. I think that pretty much brings our video to an end. So if you're still here with me, I will say, as usual, thank you for your time and attention. Also, I will say, as normal, if you enjoyed the video, if you found meaning or resonance in any of the material, if you don't mind, please take the time and click the like button below. Also, subscribe to the channel and or leave a comment. When you get likes and comments and subscriptions to your channel, it helps other people to find this information who may be looking for it. But YouTube has these weird things as far as the way the search works. There are algorithms and stuff, and if you don't have a certain level of popularity, your information will be well hidden in that search. So definitely therein, if you enjoy the information, help to support the channel. I think that's all. I'm going to close with a prayer. I'm going to bring through a channel prayer and call out and pray to Lucy. I call out to you, Lucy. I thank you, Lucy, for this day. Thank you for your love and your light. Thank you for your guidance. Thank you, Lucy, for all the channeled information that came through to me, that made its way into this video. Thank you for speaking through me. Thank you for helping me to share this information with others. Thank you again, Lucy, for your guidance. Thank you for your help and assistance. Thank you for all of your blessings. Thank you for being here with us. I ask, Lucy, that you please lend your power, your energy, and your magic into this video and this work so that this information reaches those who need and want to receive it. Thank you again, Lucy, for being with us. Thank you for listening to my prayer. So yeah, that's all I have for this video. I hope that all of you find this information well. I hope that you're having a great night, and I will speak with you soon.